Yes, guys, it is time for my top 10 running back draft targets for Fantasy Football 2025. Taking you through 10, and there might be a bonus, 11 running backs. I am trying to select for my team. These guys range from the second round to sleeper range to undrafted, and everything in between. So let's begin with Devon Achan. Now, obviously, it might be kind of obvious, right? But with that being said, I'm excluding guys like a Bijan, a Saquon, a Gibbs, who are obvious first rounders. But Achan is the first running back target on this list. A lot of people are worried about a Tua injury, an Achan injury, even though he completely debunked that label after last season. All right. But I think Achan is the best value in round 2 of drafts. He was the RB1 overall last season when Tua was healthy, led all running backs in fantasy points per game with 22.6. The next closest was Saquon Barkley with 22.2. Now, again, that is when Tua was healthy, but that was for 11 games, okay? 22.6 fantasy points. No other running back was close. Really, besides Barkley, no other running back other than those two was above 20 points there. And he averaged over 1 fantasy point per touch. I believe it was like 1.07, so pushing 1.1 fantasy point per touch. That is elite from an efficiency standpoint, guys. He is a true RB1 for fantasy, obviously. I do view him having a bell cow role. Probably going to be pushing 300 opportunities again in a great offense with touchdown upside. If he was going in the first, I'd kind of be off him, but he's going in the second, sometimes mid-second, so that Tua risk, in my opinion, is baked into the ADP. And you can start your draft, guys, with a guy like, Malik Neighbors, Nico Collins, Brian Thomas, Puka Nacua in the first, come back and get Achan. I really am all over it. Okay. The next guy on the list is Chase Brown. So all signs are pointing to Chase Brown being the clear Bengals running back. They drafted a running back in the draft who obviously is a good prospect, but again, if we loved every single later/mid-round pick RB, then all of our favorite fantasy running backs would just become worthless the second the NFL draft was over. Now, the Bengals coaching staff was quoted as saying that Chase Brown proved us right, meaning they had a lot of hope for him last year. They put him in those opportunities to excel, and he did, which is awesome. I think the Bengals offense will be the best offense in all of fantasy this year. I really, really do. For the past 2 years, it's been the Lions, but with Ben Johnson leaving, I do think the Lions are going to regress just a little bit. Now, the Bengals, everyone's healthy. Everyone, for the most part, is paid. I'm all in on the Bengals, and if they give Chase Brown 20-plus, 22-plus opportunities per game in that true, prime Joe Mixon role on the Bengals, he's going to be pushing, and I'm going to say it, for RB1 overall, honestly, across 17 games if he sees that workload. Last year, as the clear RB1, he had 24-plus total opportunities per game with the Bengals. 85% plus snaps played, 20.6 PPR points, and he was the RB3 overall. So don't look at me like I'm crazy, like I have 5 heads when I say he could be pushing for RB1 overall, because he was already RB3 overall for a good portion of last season to close the year. Cincinnati with Mixon has produced fantasy RB1s now for years. 3-4 years now, where Mixon, year in and year out. Sometimes it happens later, sometimes it happens early, sometimes he's injured here and there, but he has been a fantasy RB1, okay? So I view Chase Brown as a value RB1 in round 3. And similar to Achan, guys, just looking at how we can structure our teams, give you 3 different starts here that I really like with Chase Brown in the 3rd round. Brian Thomas, Drake London, Chase Brown. Nice. Malik Neighbors, Brock Bowers, Chase Brown. Nice. Justin Jefferson, Jonathan Taylor, Chase Brown. Nice. So all in on Chase Brown there. Next guy on the list is Alvin Kamara, targeting him in drafts as an RB2 for my team. Among RBs last year, first in expected points, first in targets per game, okay? Both those were per game. Now, on a total basis, he led all running backs in receiving yards, and he only played 14 games. Truly ridiculous. Never finished lower than RB15 in points per game. He's played 8 years, but he's drafted right now as RB16. I'm just not sure why. Now, as Saints as a whole, their offense, I'm very out on it, okay? And typically, I'm out on running backs who are past their prime age window, but if you are an elite receiving back like Alvin Kamara, where you're doing less things up the middle, okay, getting hammered every single play by monster linebackers, when you tend to avoid those things, you tend to have a longer career. Now, He slowed down last year in terms of rushing, but it's just not really why we're drafting him. Like, he is an elite, probably the best, other than maybe a McCaffrey, receiving back in the NFL. And in that department, which scores the fantasy points for him, it's where the majority of his points come from, he has not slowed down. So I'm in on Kamara, just where he's going in drafts at RB16. Again, never finished lower than RB15. All right. Next up is Chuba Hubbard. We're starting to get more into these dead zone, these middle round guys, and there are more of them who are more mid round than Chuba Hubbard. But last year, his role on the Panthers was a dream workload for any fantasy football running back. 73 total high value touches. That was top 4 amongst RBs. 30 green zone touches, guys. Also top 4 among RBs. 77% of snaps played. Good for RB3. And 46 total catches, RB6. So, I mean, that workload, you can put like your mailman or like, your dog walker or like your Airbnb host of the vacation home you're staying in a couple months in that workload, and they're finishing a top 12 RB. It's that simple, okay? That is the blueprint for elite running back production. And I think the workload is going to continue in 2025. I know Rico Dowdle's there, but they signed Chuba to a long-term deal. I think Dowdle's a nice addition. Honestly, I think he's a pretty good pick late in drafts. But Chuba Hubbard is the lead role. He is the lead running back. And like I said, 77% of snaps played. If that drops to like 60 because of Dowdle, he's still going to be returning on his value here, going in drafts around RB18. So I also think the Carolina offense is pretty good. Really showed signs of improvement at the end of last season. Now, this one's a bit surprising. True dead zone running back. It is Tyrone Tracy. Similar to Hubbard, he had kind of that bell cow status last season just based on volume alone once the Giants really leaned into him, which was weeks 5 through 18 in his full-time role. He had 18-plus opportunities per game. Now, that is a very important number. Remember that, 18-plus opportunities per game. And he was the RB16 overall, which is nothing crazy, all right? But in that span, 69% of snaps, very nice. Ranked top 10 amongst all RBs. And I just think the Giants view him as too crucial to their team, and he was too good last year to lose the entire backfield right away to Cam Scatterboo. So remember I talked about 18-plus opportunities per game. So 83% of running backs last year who hit that mark finished an RB1, a top 12 RB. 83%. So Travis Etienne, Isaiah Pacheco, DeAndre Swift, RJ Harvey, and yes, Tyrone Tracy. Those are some guys in the mid rounds who I've identified that could be hitting that 18-plus opportunity per game. Again, moving on here, sticking in the dead zone, actually kind of coming out of it now a bit later in drafts, is Caleb Johnson, the rookie on the Steelers. So he was drafted basically to just fill Najee's role, steps right into Pittsburgh in the Najee role. Jalen Warren's role, in my opinion, is not going to change too much. He might see an extra carry here and there, but really it is Caleb Johnson, because last year in college, he only played 12 games, 1,700-plus total yards and 23 touchdowns. He had a higher breakaway percentage last year than Ashton Genty, and his advanced stats are pretty good. As I said, his breakaway yards, very good. 861, second amongst all running backs. Over 1,000 yards after contact, top 5 amongst running backs. Steps right into the workload in Pittsburgh. All in. A guy who's going back-to-back with Caleb Johnson in drafts is Travis Etienne. And a lot of people are worried about Tootin, Bashal Tootin. A lot of people are worried about Tank Bigsby. In my opinion, here are the facts, okay? Tootin is a 4th-round rookie who, in my opinion, struggles between the tackles. Now, his per-touch metrics on like A-gap runs or runs between the tackles are very good because he did not get a lot of them. This is not a guy who you're going to give 25 carries to a game, 20 carries to a game. Etienne, sure. Honestly, Tank Bigsby, sure, he could do that too. But with Bigsby, he's arguably the worst pass-catching running back in the NFL. If you want evidence of that, I'd be happy to supply it. There are multiple tweets on my profile at JoeRicoFF of him just like incapable of catching a ball, like the type of pass you throw to like your toddler, and he just can't catch it. Like he just kind of claps his hands like a seal, and he either fumbles it or the other team picks it off for a touchdown. There's like 4 or 5 clips of that. I'm happy to provide them. Is Tank Bigsby better on the goal line than Etienne? I would go as far as saying absolutely, right? There are things that Tootin might do better than Etienne. He might be faster. He's probably faster. There might be things that Bigsby is better. He's better at scoring the ball from 1 yard away. Bigsby get ball and score. Yeah, he's better at that. But with Etienne, he's the most well-rounded back in the backfield. Liam Cohen has come out and said, we are designing plays for Etienne. We're honestly scheming most of the offense around the type of plays, these plays in space that Etienne likes like similar to how they did with Bucky Irving. All right, last year Liam Cohen did. So Etienne we've been told by Liam Cohen that he is the lead running back. We've been told by Liam Cohen that he is going to get plays that suit him, his play style. Yet he's going round 8 of drafts. Mind you, 1 year ago today. Today is June 23rd. 1 year ago today, Travis Etienne was contending for RB1 overall. He just went head-to-head with McCaffrey. Actually, not really. McCaffrey had like 100 more points on the season, but he was the RB2 in PPR weeks 1 through 17. He is one of the greatest college running backs ever, Travis Etienne. All right? And I think he disappointed last year because of his terrible offensive line, his terrible offensive scheme, Trevor Lawrence's injuries. Like, I have a lot of hope for Etienne. I'll quit the glazing, okay? But I really do think that, guys, that Etienne going where he's going in drafts, close to 100th overall, right next to Caleb Johnson, that's a value pick, all right? Now, let's get into the next guy on our list here, and I'm sorry for the screen bugging out a little bit, but for those YouTube watchers, hang with me for a sec. All right, who's next on the list? We have Etienne, and then we have, yes, my number one sleeper, because he's going outside the top 100 picks in drafts, is Tai Spears. Spears was the lead Tennessee running back last year during the fantasy playoffs. Some people will say Tony Pollard was injured. He wasn't. He was healthy. He was injured before that, but weeks 15 through 17, he was healthy. Spears only saw 61% of snaps. It's nothing groundbreaking, but he was the RB5 overall, weeks 15 through 17 fantasy playoffs last year, 20.7 fantasy points per game, 16 plus opportunities per game. JT, Bijan, Jahmyr Gibbs, James Cook, those are the only running backs that were better. Okay. In his games last year, where Spears saw 50% of snaps, all right, he was an RB1 in every single one of them. Now, again, weeks 15 through 17, and that's only 50% of snaps. That's just a slight majority of snaps over Pollard. Weeks 15, 27 points, week 16, 21, and week 17, 13.3. Again, good for RB5 in that span, going outside the top 100 running backs, younger, better at football than Tony Pollard. How can you not be in there outside the top 100 picks? Another guy outside the top 100 picks, Jordan Mason, brought into Minnesota for short yardage situations between the tackles and goal-to-go carries. Goal-to-go carries, I should say, on the 1 yard line. Mason's coming in. No longer is Aaron Jones getting these on the 1 yard line carries and sprinting into the center, as we've seen like an Etienne do and an Aaron Jones do. We're just not doing that anymore. Kevin O'Connell has come out and said they've literally brought in Jordan Mason because he's a finisher. All right, finishes run strong. He's currently projecting Mason for 10 plus opportunities per game in a good offense. Now, this is not groundbreaking stuff. This is not top 12 consideration here, but last year he was a top 10 running back in a lead role as CMC's backup for the Niners. Now, very different scheme, very different everything, okay? But in limited opportunities, he's looked very good. And O'Connell really, really likes him. Multiple interviews of O'Connell talking a lot about Jordan Mason and what he brings to the team here, okay? Next guy, sleeper alert. Dylan Samson is my number one RB sleeper for fantasy football this year. And that's because he's 20 years old. And that's not just why, he's also very good, but historically, running backs drafted at age 20. Now, a viewer brought this up in the comments a couple of videos ago that, well, that's just because, there's less running backs drafted at age 20. What I was going to say is they break out more often, they're given more opportunities, and they do great things with them. Historically, those are all facts, okay? And yes, there are less running backs that are drafted at age 20. So the percentage of them that break out or do good with opportunities or get opportunities is naturally going to be higher, okay? But if there are fewer than them, right? If there's like 4 RBs every year that get drafted at age 20, as opposed to like, I don't know, 30 that get drafted at age 21 and 22, okay? Well, the guys at age 20 are probably a little more talented, a little bit, maybe a little less proven, but a little more talented. So the fact that they're in the draft competing against these guys who are older than them, they're most likely, like I said, a little less proven, and sometimes that hurts them in their career, but potentially a little more talented. Now, does this mean that Dylan Samson is more talented than Ashton Genty and Marion Hampton, those guys who are 21 and 22? No, it doesn't, okay? But the later RBs, right, down the rookie rankings, who are 21, 22, 23, RJ Harvey, 24, right, they raise a little bit of red flags, okay? As I said, factually, when you're 20 years old as a running back, you break out more often in the NFL. You're given more opportunities. Do great things with those opportunities. I have a whole thread available there. We've talked about it in many of our videos with graphs, evidence, all these things. But yes, Samson is 20, one of the best running backs in Tennessee Vols history, University of Tennessee. And I think him alongside Quinshon Judkins, okay, they are the future of this backfield in Cleveland. Like, if they can get a QB, their wide receivers are good, their running backs are good, their defense is okay, it's pretty good. Like, that's a pretty good team, honestly. They just need the QB. And I think that Judkins and Samson are going to, ideally, best case scenario is they are a duo, the likes of Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, or David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Really think we've seen these duos succeed in the NFL, and their play styles complement each other well, and I think they can do it. Now, the 11th running back, a bit of a bonus here before we conclude the video, is Trevian Henderson, because naming all of these running backs and not mentioning Trevian Henderson, who, as a 19-year-old freshman in college, had over 1,200 rushing yards and 19 touchdowns, who, on 667 total touches in college, has never lost a single fumble, literally has more national championships than fumbles lost. Trevian Henderson, the only rookie running back last year, Janty, Hampton, nobody, the only guy, Henderson, who had 1,000 rushing yards and 200 receiving yards and 7 yards per carry. I would be damned if I did not mention Trevian Henderson as a running back target that I'm trying to get in every single draft. He is the ideal guy this year to start the season not doing much, and then midway through the season, end of the season, completely take over the job in New England, guys. If you were wondering, all of these articles are available at joeoricoff.com and or NOEXPERTFantasyFootball.com. Take you to the same place here, guys. All of my content that I post every single day is available here. Click the article, guys. You can read through every single thing, update it daily. Scroll over to Win Your League here on the website. Join the Discord, okay? You get draft guides, top 300 rankings, lineup optimizer, anything you want. You ask me in the Discord. Link is in the bio, literally 24/7. I will manage your team with you guys. That's going to do it for today. Adios.